Okay, we're set to go here. Hi, Pierre. Hi, Richard.
Hello. Hi.
So welcome everybody to our third in our e-learning series on service-oriented IT. We're going to jump right in. We have a lot of content to cover today in our 30-minute power webinar. So we're definitely encouraging as we go here, if you'd like to dive deeper on any particular point we hit on, please send us an email and would be more than happy to schedule time to talk to you in particular areas. So today we're focusing on organizational dependencies for success in service-oriented IT. That is a mouthful. Okay. So as usual, our format is a panelist discussion on specific topics, and today, as I won't repeat myself, when it comes to success factors, we're really going to be looking at from the perspective of executive support, how do cross-cutting processes come into play, the requirement for cross-functional resources to collaborate, a change in thinking, and really being aware that it is a transformation type of activity. So really this is for non-technical, not audiences, but people that technical folks need to work with, as well as your business analyst, in order to be successful in this area of IT. So let's introduce the panel. Pierre.
Yes, I'm Pierre Paquette. I'm a technical lead here at RAPA. My background and how it relates to the topic today is more on the services side and helping companies get the most out of what they're deploying in terms of technology. My background is software development, developed applications in multiple areas, but in the last several years it's been mostly around services and, like I said, getting the most out of product. And sometimes there is some development involved, and that's really where I fit.
My name is Susan Odell. I'm a COO at RAPA. My role is really the business end of our organization as a company, but also with clients, to make sure that we have very clear business objectives and outcomes, and that everything that we're doing from a project point of view, as well as looking at our clients' overall IT operation, is really progressing towards business outcomes. So strategic planning and looking at whether you've got the right resources in place and those types of things. My technology background is quite diverse, covering areas from ITAM, service management, to systems management, learning management, and document management. Richard.
Yeah, my name is Richard Larocque. I have over 25 years of IT consulting, business systems, but the last 15 years or so focusing on IT service management and helping clients move towards a service-based model, a service delivery-based model. Obviously, done a lot of work in the ITIL sphere. Certainly am not a ITIL purist. I'm more an ITIL pragmatic. I want to make sure that things work for an organization, and so my role has always been basically in between Pierre and Sue, because I'm one side on technology, one side on service and process, and trying to make sure that the two kind of come together to provide the service to clients.
Great. Okay, so jumping right in, as we said, in session number 1, we talked about the business value of service-oriented IT. And again, you can go to our website, and under the e-learning link, you can see a video for that particular e-learning session. Our second session 2 weeks ago was looking our first layer of the IT component hierarchy, and looking at clients and services and how those have to work together and what that means in terms of service-oriented IT. Today, we're going to dive into aligning the IT stack. So within IT, you have services that need to be defined and bundled and marketed and delivered. You've got capabilities within IT that I'm stealing actually the next slide, so I'll stop there. But we're going to dive into this and then go further from there. Anything else, guys?
No, I think you're right. Let's just step to the next one and just dive in.
Okay. So Richard, did you want to open up on this one?
Okay, yeah. The reason we came up with this model, the IT stack, is to show that it's not about focusing on just services or just infrastructure. It's really about this whole thing. Delivering IT services needs to make sure that all of these layers align together and work together. So from a service perspective, what are we actually delivering to our clients? From a capability perspective, how are we managing those services? how are we managing, making sure that the pieces come together to deliver the service. Then from a people perspective is, do we have the right people to support the capabilities that ultimately deliver the service? And finally, from an infrastructure perspective, do we have the right technologies? But it's about making sure, and this is the topic of today's presentation, is about making sure that we integrate this, through and through.
Right. Silos have to be banished in order to be successful, right?
And from my point of view, from the technical side, when we see things like infrastructure and people and capabilities and IT, we always think, it's technology and people have to know how to deploy, maintain, support, provide support for people consuming or using that technology. But we always tend to forget that, when we talk about people and services, it does go beyond just the technology. It does go to having people who are business aware and being able to define those services, not from a technology point of view, but definitely from a service point of view. So, in today's series, or in today's presentation, we do talk about technology, but we talk about the whole stack, from infrastructure where the technology lies and the services where the business is.
Okay. So let's start to go a little bit deeper here. And number one, we want to talk about service-dependent IT capabilities. What does service-dependent mean? It means that services have a number of IT capabilities that must be in place in order for the service to be delivered, to be effective, to deliver the quality of service that's intended, and to make sure that the clients that are consuming them, whether they're external to the organization or internal to the organization, are satisfied with what they're purchasing from IT. So, as the second bullet says, some of these capabilities in terms of the depth or the applicability may vary from a service level perspective, but they should all be present across all of the services. So you can't imagine, if you're delivering end user enablement, you still need to say, okay, what are my compliance metrics, internal and externally, to delivering end user enablement? What am I buying, my procurement and contract management? What am I buying, and what are my contract terms, etc.? There's a lot of things we could talk about. We're not going to go through every single one, but all of these are applicable to any service you're going to deliver to your clients.
And the list that we have there is actually a subset of the complete list of capabilities we've identified. And in order to build that list, we've gone beyond purely the ITIL model, and really have gone to other models such as COVID, ISO 20000, and other external models to that, to actually understand the entire business of IT, not just the service management piece, but what is the entire business of IT made up of. And so if you look at the list on the left-hand side, you will notice that some of these capabilities are not straight out of ITIL. They do differ, but we intended to do that because we wanted to make sure we covered everything.
That's a good point, Richard, and you said it earlier when you were introducing yourself as not being an ITIL purist, right? This is about what works in practice, what actually can be accomplished, and it's everything we're delivering in our e-learning sessions and to our clients is about practical experience that's supported by industry best practice and industry standards, etc.
Yeah, and part of that is to identify things that, in really simple terms, is you need these capabilities in IT. And what we've seen when we're helping these different organizations mature in their IT management practices is that they all do, to a certain level, each one of these things. Some do some of these more, and some do some of these less. But typically when we start diving into each one, we always ask the question, okay, well, what are you doing today? And in every case, there is something happening in each one of these areas today in IT, whether it's mature or whether it's, it's got backed by process and procedures. I mean, that is part of the work of becoming more mature, but it's really to identify that there's a need for these types of capabilities.
Right. So to dive into that, clear ownership of the capability. So if those of you that are on the in the meeting today, look within your own organizations and you look to the list to the left, can you identify the resources within your organization that are clearly the owners of these capabilities? And then if you look at it from a, an operational point of view, who is accountable end to end from design right through to retirement for the definition, implementation, operation, and continuous improvement of these capabilities. Because if you don't know that, when you're trying to define and release a service, who are you going to say this piece of it, right? The release management of this service, I know for sure that it's going to be released on time and it's going to meet whatever standards you've set. Who is that person that's going to manage that for you? So this is critical to identify who those owners and those accountable resources are. In addition, this is a key point, the third bullet, that executive support, now if you're a smaller organization, you may not have a CIO, maybe it's a director of IT, but whoever that top person is responsible for IT overall, you need their support in order for this type of capability, dependency to be enforceable. It really does take that level of support from executive. And if you don't have it, then unfortunately what happens is that your clients are going to experience a less than satisfactory level of experience with your services, and that's going to come back to IT as a negative score, and that's not what you want. So it's about trying to be proactive about looking at the capabilities that you're dependent on, who owns them, who's accountable for them, and then to be able to get CIO support so that you can be ensured of delivering a quality service to your clients.
Yeah, for me, the point that sticks out is the end-to-end accountability of each capability, and too often we see the challenges within organizations is that there is nobody accountable for end-to-end, and they operate in silos where part of a capability is handled and then thrown over the wall, and then there's that lack of communication from end to end within the capability. So that's really one of the challenges that we see and that we identify and help organizations get through.
Yeah, a client I worked with called this the OTTC, the one throat to choke. I mean, in the end, someone's got to be accountable for these things to get done.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and I think the more nicer saying is one back to pat. So,
yeah.
So it depends on your point of view, if you're a half glass empty or a half glass full.
Yeah,
what was the
depends on management style.
Richard, what was that acronym again? It's the first time I heard you use the acronym.
OTTC.
OTTC, wow, okay. Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide. So I'll just quickly go through the build, and then Richard and Pierre, if you can just, we'll dive into some of this discussions on each line. So for any service that you are delivering to your clients, it's made up of service components, systems, hardware components, software components. There's other things going on that we're not going to specify each widget, but that's generally speaking what comprises a service. From that, there are relationships, like we said in the last slide, between the service-dependent IT capabilities. And what we've done now is given you a summary in a very short amount of words of what the role each of these IT capabilities plays in the delivery of that service to the client. So let's go through it. Who wants to kick off? Richard, on governance?
Okay, so governance is really about ensuring the proper control and the consistent control. So it's both an internal and an external view, but it's about controlling the different pieces that come together to deliver that service.
Pierre?
Should I keep going?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll go through a few, and then we can talk about some of them.
Okay, so IT financial management, obviously, it's about the sound stewardship of the money that we have. Certainly an area where there's more and more pressure on IT to be more clear about what they are delivering and at what costs and where is the money going.
Right.
Procurement and contract management. Sorry, go ahead.
Just a point on financial management. This is an important thing. The cost of the service to construct it, to build it, and the cost you're charging to your clients, that is a whole activity in and of itself. Does IT want to just recover cost recovery on a particular service? Or do you want to have a little bit of an uplift for change that you can't anticipate, that you need to have some amount of buffer That's an important decision. And if so, then how are you going to develop your metrics around that? So just as Richard and Pierre and I go through this list, each one of these capabilities is no joke, right? It's a practice that has to be formalized and matured. And it's not a 3 or 6 month project. It's about saying, what do I need to do within this capability now to support my end goal, which is releasing this service or these services, and then work backwards, right? So I just wanted to step in because as we go through these, we don't want to oversimplify it, but understanding the value to the service is really important.
Yeah, each one of these, like you said, is a webinar on itself, and if you look at each one of these capabilities, there's different players in each one. Some of them will play in one or two of these areas, but there are more technical, there are more business, there are more finance, and so on. There's project planning, and there's just a wide range of roles that are needed to cover all these capabilities.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly. So if I keep going through the list, and guys, stop me if there's anything. IT procurement and contract management, well, that's about dealing with the people that provide us services, or widgets and pieces of equipment. So it's about putting in place contracts with providers, and then managing the procurement cycle against those contracts, whether it's for a PC or for a complete application. Service portfolio management is about, within IT, understanding what are all the services we deliver, how can, where are they in their life cycle, are they coming in, new services that we'll be offering, are they at the end of their life, and how do we manage the transition out, and so managing that entire portfolio.
So maybe
go ahead.
Instead of going through like one at a time throughout the remainder of the list, if you could start grouping some of these together that deal with specific subject matter. So if we're we talked about service.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
That was weird.
Yeah, I just got a note from several of our attendees. So I apologize, everyone. It seems that the recording did not start right away. So we're going to keep going with this, and for everyone listening in, we'll send you a link to the recording immediately following the session, but you should be able to hear us now. Okay.
Right.
Go ahead. Thank you.
So, yeah. So for those joining us, we're talking about this long list of capabilities. Each one in itself is an area of development, of concentration, but some of them are grouped. And we were talking about service portfolio management, singled out that specific capability, but you can see its relationship to, a service level management and the service catalog and the service design and development and transition. So we're talking more about services at the business end. Business relationship management, again, resource planning covers a lot of areas. If we're talking more on the technology side, supplier management, contract management, asset management, and then when we're talking more about operational type capabilities of request, incident, change, problem, change and release, and those kind of fit together. So each one of these really is a capability that at a high level needs to be in place. As we look at each individual service or each different types of technologies, some of these would then be more specific to that area. We had this discussion earlier today about what is generic and what is specific, and I guess utopia is they're all generic and they apply equally on everything you do, but the reality is you will have some that are a little bit more specific. I guess the difficulty here is to fall into having specific capabilities for each service. Now that's something you want to stay away from.
Yes, for sure. And it goes back to also a point that you were making earlier. These capabilities in themselves should not be a surprise in the sense that, you know, someone somewhere in the organization is doing some of it. It may be ad hoc, it may be informal, but, you know, there is governance, otherwise the organization wouldn't work. There is IT financial management and so on and so forth. But it's just that it may not be formal, it may be done in silos on a, we say service, but in some organizations they're not even there. It's done on a system by system basis. But you know, it's about understanding where you are and then understanding, you know, how can we progress on these different things because we know you need them.
Yeah. Dealing with things in silos, you have the sense that you are getting work done, and in a lot of cases you do. Moving away from those silos is really what all organizations should be striving for, so that you have that collaboration, exchange of ideas and challenges, but also to have that commonality and to make sure that there's no assumptions of who is doing what. And again, it's coming back to end-to-end accountability. I think that's the important thing there, is that it is end-to-end, and that there is you know, some commonality between the different areas and the different types of technology, everything. Yeah.
And you know, there's certainly, you know, an area of efficiencies also. I mean, if each system is siloed, you're doing things, you know, multiple times that could be, you know, made to work together and would then be, you know, simplified and more efficient as an organization. So certainly, you know, yeah, we could go through the list, but then, as you said, it's probably a webinar for each of them.
Yeah, and as we've mentioned earlier, because we were not fully broadcasting, if there are any of these capabilities that you would like us to meet with you individually as an organization, or to dive deeply within an e-learning session, please let us know, and we'll be happy to tackle that as well. Okay, shall I move on?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So our last slide is just to talk really about cultural shift and transformation, but also recommendations. We want to leave you with something you can act on moving forward. So, you know, if you feel like I don't have any of these capabilities in good shape, or maybe they're immature, or maybe I've got 10% of them or 30% that are operating well, you're not alone. Most organizations haven't operationalized all of the service-dependent IT capabilities. It's a progressive type of thing. And with the move to service-oriented IT and virtualization and all these things, it's really driving more of a need for this to happen. So, but the reality is that it is a shift. It's a mindset shift to say, you know, I'm not just working in request management, or I'm not just working on the server infrastructure team. What I do here has a relationship to something that the end customer consumes. That's a shift in thinking. So we've made a few recommendations, and we'll just talk about each of them quickly. So take the time to understand your current position across all IT capabilities. Richard, or Pierre, I should say, do you want to expand on that one?
Yeah, it comes back to really understanding what your capabilities are, and to do that, and this is a really good list to start from. And with each one of these is to come up with some kind of a score to say, oh, I'm mature here, or I'm not too concerned about this yet, because I'm, you know, I have other things that I need to advance. So some of these, it really is about looking at each one and saying, okay, am I chaotic? Am I aware? Am I defined? Or am I proactive? Companies, organizations that are technology, strong in technology, you know, they'll be some, you know, aware, defined, maybe proactive more on the technology side, and are looking to become more service-oriented. So then the maturity in the service area and the business area of services is probably lacking. And some, we've seen actually some organizations that it's the complete opposite, is that there's a push to define businesses, and they're proactive from a service point of view, but when it comes down to, you know, the technology and keeping track of the technology and just being better governance at the technology level, then that maturity level is lacking. So it really is about finding, you know, where your strong points are, what capabilities you have, doing an assessment in terms of maturity, and then identifying, you know, where your improvement needs to happen. You know, it's continual improvement is really important.
Okay, the second one.
I don't have. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I don't have much to add to Pierre, so good job, Pierre.
The second one is defining and acting on strategies to improve what we call the minimum level of IT capability. So again, this isn't about solving everything in a project. It's not. This is about establishing a practice and making it better over time. So define your strategy based on where you are, your current position, as Pierre took us through, and then get going on it, right? Do those things that actually deliver progress.
Yeah, and it has to be specific. I mean, too often you hear of, IT service management or ITIL projects that, try to do everything at once and without a very specific aim other than just saying, let's do ITIL. I mean, it doesn't work. You have to be specific, and you have to be specific from a, pain point perspective, a maturity perspective, and identify things that are achievable in the short term. I think that's, essential.
Yeah, and if you don't do that, what tends to happen is you're always at that definition phase, saying, oh, well, maybe we should be doing this and we should be doing that, without actually getting to operationalize any of these particular capabilities. So that is an important one, is to identify the strategy and where do I need to improve, so I can then take the next step towards becoming more mature.
Exactly.
And, to narrow it even more, because again, we believe in measurability on everything, is don't apply, the strategy that you're looking at to every single IT capability, or every single service, I should say. Maybe pick one that is representative of a moderately challenging service. Maybe it's consuming multiple asset types. You have to cross multiple departments in IT, or who knows what the scenario might be, multiple systems, complexity of system. Choose something that's moderately challenging, because it'll give you a good representation of what you need to achieve in your organization, and prove that you have the capability and the capacity to deliver, and manage it as a detailed project. Now, with this kind of a scope, you're going to increase your odds of getting support from the CIO to fund a project of this nature, rather than saying, I'm going to improve at everything, because it's not possible to do that in one go. And once you prove success, then you're going to have the support to expand and improve from there. Any last?
Yeah. Well, exactly. I mean, and it goes back to something I think we said on the first slide. It's about getting, executive support, executive buy-in behind this. It's very hard to do as a kind of a grassroots movement. It has to be supported by the CIO, or leadership of the organization. So demonstrating results is one sure way of getting that support.
Right. Okay, so we're just 2 minutes away from closing for today's session. So as we said, as soon as we, I guess it's called publish the webinar, the video from today, we will send it to everyone who attended today, so that you've got the full media, a link to it anyway. And then we'll encourage you to register for our next session. It's in 2 weeks on April 21st. We'll be going back to the IT component hierarchy. Again, 2 weeks ago we focused on clients and services, first and second tier. In 2 weeks, we'll look at the third and fourth tier. It says second and third. It should be actually third and fourth.
Yeah.
So getting a little more technical now around systems and applications, and how those things come together and funnel up to the higher levels of the hierarchy. If you have any questions about today's topic, any areas you'd like to go into any deeper, please contact us at webinars@rapidconsulting.com. And we thank you for participating today. Thank you, Richard. Thanks, Pierre.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun again, so looking forward to the next one.
See you in
See you in a couple of weeks.
Okay. Bye.
Yeah.
See ya.
Bye-bye.